Oh my God. Thank you, Aaron. Oh my God, I don't even know what to say. That was just too much. Anyway, yes, I was happy to offer to donate my skills in lieu of actual money, because that I don't have. But I could edit things, and I could do the InDesigns and whatever, and I could do that for you at least. So, it's an honor to support this press, to be honest. So I'm going to read from Bloofer. I'm going to read one from American Ingenue, and I'm also going to read the poem that went into Footprints, because I definitely want to show the depth and breadth of this wonderful press. And also, all of these were taken on before I started working there. I feel like I should just, this is not a nepotism. At least I hope it's not. Anyway. So just a little bit of background about Bloofer, because it's a weird thing. This is the creative components to the PhD thesis that I have just finished and passed with minor corrections. And it is a combination. Well, it's a found work. It's a conceptual work that introduces what I argue is vampire poetics, where I am vampiring from other sources, and to really kind of just be as on the nose as possible. I am vampiring from vampire texts in this one, specifically texts about female vampires, because female vampires essentially start off as usually domestic violence victims, and they are they're murder victims. It's not sugarcoated, and that's something that we all kind of, gloss over in the romance of the vampire. But it also includes the work of Sylvia Plath in places as a source text. So to sort of pull out those Gothic elements of hers that I think are long overlooked. But it's not, the idea isn't to just sound like Sylvia or steal from Sylvia or whatever. But it's a whole thing. And I wrote like a whole 30,000 words, which will eventually be on Ethos if anyone cares. So that's the background of this. And I will shut up and start reading. This one is called The Villagers Never Liked You. I wake to a mausoleum. This is the room I could not breathe in. Black bat airs wrap me, raggy shawls, blue garments unloosing small owls. Eternity bores me. My soul dies for it. I eat men like air. I never wanted it. And the next one is called The Rising. The town knows about darkness, the slithered purple that comes on the land when rotation hides the sun. Something gathered, slow and heavy and electric, almost as though the town knows evil is coming, and its shape. From here, we can't see spots on the sun. We know where the roads go and where, how the ground lies. The town has us because we know it, and it knows us. It sees through our lies, even the ones we tell ourselves. And in the dark, the town is ours, and we are the town's. Being in the town is prosaic, sensuous, alcoholic. Black galaxies shot with morphic red. We see ourselves drowning in sweet evil falls and liking it. There is no life here but the slow death of days. Something is going to happen. Can't we feel it? Sorry. I should have had some, musical interlude while I change pages. But I didn't. So this one is called The Vampire Who Said He Was You. He bites, a mouth just bloodied. The blood flood is the food of love, a love gift utterly unasked for. Death opened like a black tree, blackly. The box is only temporary, black bunched in there like a bat. I bleed or sleep all the blackening morning, separated from my house by headstones and corpses. I am red meat, red hair, marble facades. The corpse at the gate petrifies as I rise. Okay, I'm going to read this one. This is silly, but for a while I was working as a secondary English teacher before I taught as a associate lecturer and whatever. So I've done like from year 11 up in teaching. And the one thing that everyone does is when you say, write a poem, they write an acrostic. And I hate the acrostic. So while I was screwing around here, I decided, you know what, I'm going to try it. I'm going to try an acrostic. So here's my acrostic. Vamonos. As far as God's concerned, menstrual blood is one rough-tough machine. Peter Cushing does that all the time. I want to walk the night and fall in love and drink. Remember me. Dream of me. Everyone else is just cocktails. There it is. There's my acrostic. And it didn't even use my name, which is more than I can say for 98% of my students. I love my students. I'm kidding. I love them. I love them. I'm not making fun of them. Also, can I find a new? Okay, this one has a little story behind it. So I have a friend who has had some kids. I can't be more specific than that, other than I love these kids. And one of them is trans. And that kid and I used to bond over Harry Potter because we loved Harry Potter. And then we kind of were not loving Harry Potter so much anymore because sometimes, you know, you can separate the author from the art, and sometimes the author just really, really wants to not allow you to do that and insert themselves repeatedly and interfere with something that you loved to the point that you don't love it anymore. And I was thinking about what a loss that is, especially to younger people who so embrace the fantastic and the imagination and literature to the point where they immerse themselves in it. And it's just such a shame to have that taken from them. So I was house sitting and I thought, you know what, I'm going to try and give this back to him. And that's why I wrote Solomonari. And this is for Theo, who I love very much. The library is warm with golden tomes, old leather and old folios, heavy pages, a babble of conversation that smelled of black cherries and clean cotton, parting in violent rifts of drunken laughter, books and maps, cracked spines, razor blades between the pages. Books aren't what you came to see. This isn't exactly the safest place to hide, walking on bones, skeletons ground to gravel, no stone unpublished. Pack your navy suitcase of aging paper and cracked vellum. Fill with school books and too many pairs of clean socks. Carry a map of sense in your head, a whole world on a chunk of rock in the middle of a bleak tile floor as if it were dark water, clocks ticking disapprovingly as candle colors cut the newsprint dust. There is a tradition the scholars protect. The ghost of lights in your eyes blow against the window. Watch them explode against the glass. Okay. Rosemary remembers. Night is the hardest time to be alive. I wake up here. 4 a.m. knows all my secrets. Soon the sun will warm the stones under my feet. I've waited half the night. Sometimes lovers rise, sometimes they lie. Fingers cold as bone, as loneliness, bones meeting and speaking in bone language. Until I wake, my humanity is a dream depleted. Something inside me remembers, will not forget, What goes on between the dead is the dead's business. Time ticks. The stone, the leaf, the unfound door, the angel with its expression of soft stone idiocy, a lily drooped, dead in stone, dust. Oh, maybe not. Kind of thinking about two that I wasn't sure, and I think I'm going to go with the other one instead. I can find it. Apologies. I don't even remember what it was called. Sorry. Many apologies. I am nervous. Okay. This one, I'm going to do a shout out to my girl Sarah, who is in the crowd tonight. Because if not for Sarah, she started doing found poetry, and she did this fantastic little collection called Edie Whispering, which was found poems from Grey Gardens, and it's fucking great. And I remember reading this and thinking, this is just completely and utterly blown my mind, and it changed my entire poetry practice. And without that, I would not be here. So I want to read this one for her, even though it is a little bit it's a little bit spicy. Apologies in advance. There's a content warning. It's called sang-froid. We're all drawn to what we're afraid of. Pumping hearts heated the air like Paris, where I drank the champagne of a mezzo-soprano at her salon in Montparnasse. I was infatuated. I am still. I couldn't stand being a passing fancy. Her face felt hot, her tongue a distant throbbing lit from inside, bodies pressed so close the swell of her breasts were knobbed quartz, the cant of her hips a window open to the night. I gripped my arms as she pushed my back into the dirt, wrestling next to the poubelle, my breath catching in surprise under the soft pressure of a mouth gliding over tiny hairs standing along my thigh. Holding me in place, laving my skin, her tongue deep in my garnets, red walls wincing with every hitch in my breath, her hand a shiver like some slow electric current. She didn't want to explain the recklessness, the pain of deep dream sleep. Reeling back, I wake restless from red-soaked dreams, worn down from a fear so deep it lives in my bones. All right, I'm going to do one more. This one is called You and Your Words Obsessed. Day by day, color by color, touch by touch, the discs of the brain revolve around his sifted words, drifting to the dusty floor, cobwebs mingling, keeping other pain at bay. He made me feel special when I'd been invisible. I retraced every line and stroke his pen made. He certainly had a type. Sensitive loners who read poetry, who need someone to pour themselves into. This lover's prophecy turned in stubborn precision. Dour as grass, its words flat and virginal, carried on wind, nothing will happen that cannot be erased, like glitter on the water between the scum and the sea. Okay, I'm going to do two more. Those are from the other books, just because I want everyone to know that Erin publishes lots of stuff, which I think people already know. This one is from my collection, American Ingenue. It's 16 pages long because it is a mashup of Bret Easton Ellis and Sweet Valley High, which sounds like it doesn't go together, but it does in hilarious, unconventional, and very strange ways. This one is called This Is Not an Exit. I'm getting sick. I am plastic. There could be a telethon for all the things wrong with me. This is what we do to flee ourselves. It's easier than being happy. My mother cleaned out my closet. This is what we do to please others. She has her own sense of order. You never know when her wicked gleam will stare you into a tiny shrinking smudge. Everything was veiled while I was gone. All night stood here, a depressed pile of notebooks floating 2 feet off the pavement, another broken scene in what passes for my life, my past spelled out in toilet paper on the lawn. And my last one is from Footprints, an anthology of new eco-poetry, audited by Charlie and Aaron. And as I open this, I just wanted to say, this is after Wuthering Heights by Sylvia Plath. I wrote it at the Ted Hughes Arvin Center when I was up there for a poetry workshop the week of her birthday one year. And we got into a conversation. I was there with Greta Stoddart and John Stammers, and we were having this conversation about poems that we really liked, things we really liked about them. And one of the things that I had said was, there's a poem by Plath, Wuthering Heights, in which at the very end, she says, and valleys deepest purses, the house lights gleam like small change. So I'm probably screwed that up, but something like that. And I said, that's fucking fantastic. And he said, that's a simile. And I was like, oh, right. Yes, of course it's a simile. I could, and this is one of those moments where I kind of had to sort of unlearn things, because a couple of years previously, I did an interview with Susanna Kaysen, the author of Girl Interrupted, and I was doing a whole thing with her about why her, like about the memoir and stuff. And she had said that she told her students to not use similes. And I was like, oh, right. Susanna Kaysen says, don't use similes. I didn't use similes for like 10 years. And then in that moment, it was like, why am I not using similes? And his response to that was, you have to say what it's not like. And I thought, that is a fantastic piece of advice. And then later I went up and this whole poem came out. So this is City of Big Shoulders after Wuthering Heights by Sylvia. Dipping a toe in might refresh me, but the lake is hungry and could suck me under, leaving the buildings behind as water shadows, echoes of the black incisors that bite the pale sky. The horizon undulates before me in periwinkle waves, white-capped and tasting and always unstable. They would swirl and swirl like a message bottle in a whirlpool. So I step back. There is no life higher than the sky-deck towers or lower than the hearts smelt, and the wind blows white from the lake's surface, but the architecture refuses to yield. I can feel it fill my ears with distant sea talk. If I pay the icicles too little attention, they will extort me to redden their meltwater. The trains know where they are as they sinuously trundle their elevated tracks, silvery as the weather. It is like being ratcheted along an assembly line, one in a line of workers. Riders huddle in linebacker disguise, all hunched shoulders and bundled scarves and lake effect defiance. I come to an orchard of street lamps and lower drives, capacious as the rats that flee from my steps. Sub-basement loading zones shuttered dock to dock, decorated by cardboard boxes and the homeless. People only the air remembers. The taxis bleat for traffic to quicken. There are no fares from the lives of such company, and darkness terrifies tourists. Now in the black air between high rises that form caverns thin as space, the skyscraper lights twinkle like white noise. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you so much, Kat. I thought you were going to slowly glide away like a vampire then. I've got a question here for looking at the Gothic horror influences on your work. I'd really love to know what else seeps into your work outside of this.
What else seeped in? Well, they are political. So there's always going to be a little bit of resistance in that. And my humor always seeps in, whether I want it to or not. So it can always seem a little bit off kilter that way. Like, are you being serious? Are you being ironic? Oh. But in terms of, I'm not really entirely sure. I would have to say that the thing that really saturates this entire collection for me is rage. And as I was doing the research to write about the Goldsmiths PhD, creative writing PhD program was such that you wrote about yourself, but you had to make sure that it, like you're not writing at MA level, so you have to really dig. And it's weird, because you're asked to look at yourself like you would look at the canon, and then write about how you see yourself in the canon, and that's hard. And I wouldn't say humbling. It's like hubris almost, like how do I claim that I'm part of the English literary tradition? I'm sure some people have no trouble doing that whatsoever, but it was a bit weird for me. So while doing that, I had to think about these things, and a lot of the sort of elements of Gothic and the horror involved, I had to really think about that, and the vampire literary tradition, and pull the things that I wanted from it. And I think the thing that came through was that explicit rage of women, and how the Gothic itself sort of functions as a language in which women communicate with one another. It's a whole paper, kids. And we don't have time. But I would think that that's probably a discovery that I made, and that's while in the process of doing all of this, is that within the Gothic exists not only of violence against women, but women's own anger and rage at that violence. And I think that's probably the thing that also seeped in, if that helps at all.
Perfect. A very good answer. Thank you very much, Kat. Thank you for
I'm Erin.
thank you for a wonderful reading. I just want to really push home how much I believe in the strength of community. Things like saying that Kat and Stuart and Kit and Andre and James and the whole board, Senna, Jennifer, Gurdeep, Jasmine and Charlie, for example, and all of these people that give back to Broken Sleep, I really want to say that they are why Broken Sleep does as well as it does, is because there are people who want it to succeed. And I think that happens because I try really hard to be a kind and considerate and gentle editor and person to work with, but I also think it works because there are people around me who make that possible, who make it possible for Broken Sleep to succeed. And I just want to really point out that I think there's so much strength in that, in finding people. I'm not isolated. Most people I don't see. I live in the Ceredigion. I've got like one neighbour. It's Gillian Clark, so it's pretty cool. But I don't see her that often, and that's it. But I think community exists however you find it, whether it's digitally or physically, whatever. And I think that's why Broken Sleep does as well as it does, is because there are people willing to help, and I'm giving back to them and all of these sorts of ways. I mean, even things like one of last month's authors sent me a selection of herbal teas as a thank you for publishing them. I don't need anything to thank me, just the book's enough that I get a free copy of the book to read. But they sent me a selection of herbal teas. It was a good one today. I went for turmeric. It's quite strong, but I liked it. But I think that giving and that giving back to people and people giving back to us, that's how we succeed, is because we're willing to give in kindness without expecting stuff back. And I think really powerful. So yeah, big thank you. There's quite a few people here who are working behind the scenes with Broken Sleep, but also just people who attend the reading regularly, people who buy the books, people who talk about something and all that. So just thank you to all of you. That means a lot. I'm going to screen share in a moment because Taylor's in the middle of nowhere and has sent in a video. He told me to cut out the first few minutes. So I've started it after that cut-out point. But it's a really interesting reading because it's dashed from Delirium here, Taylor's book. And it's the selected poems of Alistair MacMeister Alistair, probably kill me, but that's a rough translation. And it's Gaelic poetry, and it's the Poetry Book Society translation choice. So I think it's a really good book. So he's going to read from that, and it is great. If you ever want to hear an American exceptionally well read Gaelic and translate Gaelic too. It's fantastic. It's really good here. But I'll play the video, and then when the video ends, the live will end as well. So I just want to say next month, we have got readings from my assistant from day one, Charlie Bayliss, who runs the excellent Anthropocene Journal online, a wonderful, wonderful poetry journal. We've got his debut collection, A Fondness for the Colour Green, and I'm very excited to release that to the world. I was reading earlier in my filing cabinet there, the letter Charlie sent me with the submission. There's like a whole handwritten letter about the book. It was lovely. We've got Cliff Forshaw's French Leave and Ivan de Montmorençon's Brambles. Brambles is just one long poem. It's fantastic. We've got Taryn Spalding Jenkin, who was born and raised first language Cornish. So his first 7 or 8 years, I think it was, maybe 6 years, he didn't speak any language except Cornish, which is really, really interesting. We've got his debut pamphlet, which has got dual language. It's got Cornish language in it, Canuic, it's got English in it. It's really brilliant. And he is excellent in Cornish and excellent in English. So it's great to see. And we've got Julia Rose Lewis's Nearly Identical Sharks. Julia is a fantastic poet, and I've been keeping an eye on her for a long time. She does some excellent work. Adrija Ghosh is a book, Commerce Between Tongues, which has illustrations in it as well. I think Adrija is going to go on to be a huge, huge poet, especially since we've got the debut collection next year as well, which is great. And Maria Fasco's Who Does Not Envy With Us Is Against Us, which is a book of essays about the working class perspective, which is really great. I mean, that's my jam. That's my whole thing, working class stuff. But it's exceptionally well, and also it links in with a opera, which is premiering in July, which is Maria's as well, and it all ties into that, and a film that she's made as well. So it's a really great launch month next month. So do come along to that. Keep an eye on our socials for the information. The post will go up in the next few days. It's bank holiday Monday tomorrow, and then Tuesday my daughter, who's only 5, is in the Eisteddfod final, and the Eisteddfod is huge here in Wales. Her and her class are in the final for the action song, the Canacto. So I'm going to spend Tuesday on grass, sneezing like a maniac, watching my daughter on stage with her class singing in Welsh for a national tournament. I'm so excited to see her do that, even if I am going to relentlessly sneeze and be crying from seeing my daughter, but also from the hay fever. So I'm going to screen share now, and you will see Taylor's video. And then after it ends, I'll just end it. And I hope you all enjoy Dastrum Delirium. There's a reason it's the Poetry Book Society translation choice. And I hope you all love it as much as I did. So make sure that wonderful share sound button is clicked, otherwise nothing happens. There you go. I'm going to play it. And what I would like is I'd like Stuart or Charlie, or even Kat, you're all on WhatsApp. I love WhatsApping people, just so you all know. If you ever want to get my number, I'm happy to. Give me a WhatsApp to say if it works or not. Just say, yes, I can hear that. And here you go.
Oh, and I should say this first long poem is broken up into kind of sequences or movements. I'm going to read the first one in Gaelic, or attempt to, but then I'll continue just reading in English throughout. I'm probably a lower intermediate speaker at best, and so I don't want to abuse the Gaelic language any more than needs to be done in this session. So, Moleg Morag, or Praise be Morag. Struig yn mis y choel, nu'r fan môr y gan. Hilgamich na crain, cob y foich achin. Un a chwldoin, y fel loin. Bimich y brwyn, fec na ros yn. Vriac y mich yn hun, mireg a blin. Bwyn, horac min fwy, na cosagyn. Hianamich ristri, sa hawlamich san hri, sa halamich yn hun, fec na stronacyn. Pity not being in the wood. When Morag was there, we joined those sunny, bonny, brown-haired girls for a laugh, guessing the cutest of us, a coin toss to know. Yet we outshine them all, immortalized among wild rose, on our stomachs, lying to each other, lying to ourselves. Our play fight became our foreplay, our sun cups delicately picked from split rock. We took off like deer over the deer moor, deep into headlands. We got lost. We got so lost. Not since I first rooked into manhood, coming of age, have I laid eyes on so fine a thing. There were others, of course, like gentle Molly, whose smile filled with rowanberry, but she only sang capricious airs. Peggy was too late in years, otherwise she would have had my heart. Marcelly, however, not quite there, yet always there, a nutter. Lily's eyelids glowed, but she, nor any other, has the deeper stare that Morag has, a stare warm enough to bathe in. Give it up for Morag, who in one wink can tweak the boys to disobey that silly always of wedlock, to stretch out lay not only with her, but her treasure. The pleasure was all mine. Hot dreams of the body ravish, stalk and score. Temptation is sick, yet right before my eyes her neckline candlelit, and I'm consumed by a wind fire of thought. Hands down, Morag is the most snug in Europe. A crotch thatched and breasts so whitewashed would scandalize the Pope. Lily of the valley, her pigment, but her breasts reappear variously red, ready and set, ample in hand, they ache to be needed, to know love alone shirks all blessing of clan and ken, and in turn you'll be needed then, your spirits renewed, for as her desire grows, so do you. Delirium, delirium from her, a girl, blonde, lurid, how she snuffs out her own flint spark glow, and in one white bite, hewn from snow, as sex and excess, as body and beauty, so Vito, so Dido, so Venus, so Morag, ravishes my seasons, my genius spent. A girl with sharp agency can pierce the heart clean through. All ears as my spirit, charmed by your chanter, lifts out toward the lyrical air, and with a spring in my step, I step dance the Urlid. When your fingers take the lead, they take me down the scale, swinging lower to keep pace, a lower melody freely arranged to a 4-3-2-1 whole bass drone. Wow! Execution, commandment through killed mold, through huge sudden sound, a standing ovation as the house is brought down to its knees, a long, sharp, delicate keen, then sullen trill, hypnotic, undisrupted, warbling over broad hill like thunder after a storm. Your footfall in time. Even after your performance, ever after, resonant, straight, true, the croon lua of your fingers ringing in my ears still. So this poem and the rest of the poems in this collection, as I said, were all written by an 18th century Scottish Gaelic writer named Alistair MacPhister Alistair, or in English sometimes he's translated to Alexander MacDonald, although we need to stop doing that because, I mean, we just need to call him by his name, even if it's a little difficult to pronounce. We don't call Pierres in French. We don't call them Peters. We just call them Pierre. So it's about time that we start referring to the person himself. Um, but the big question is, who is he? So he's an 18th century Scottish Gaelic poet, but he was also a captain to Charles Edward Stuart Army, the Bonnie Prince Charlie. In 1745 and 6, he was a teacher, a catechist. He was a lexicographer. He was a great many things, but we actually don't know much about him. Most of his life is kind of just threaded together by speculative narrative. Um, or rather, we know stuff about him. It just cannot be proven by documentation. This is kind of the thing about oral culture versus written culture. But anyways, being or being remembered, we should say, as a Jacobite, he often wrote um, political verse, although that's maybe being a little too fair. A lot of people might rather type it as or describe it as propaganda. So I'll read some of that for you. Um, in Gaelic, this poem is called Oren do Frinse. I've broken it up in two as Dream of the Prince and Dream of Victory. Dream of the Prince. Here he comes now out of exile. Our arms are wrapped in cloak and welcome. His arrival thrills. This son of our rightful king has looks to kill. A striking side view with slick sword and plated shield. My knight in shining armor from overseas is a tall, graceful rider whose caracal stuns any light horse insurgents. Rarest appearance, his skyful glare of March, a rainbow's splinter, the rain gray rush. One swing of that sword would scythe our enemy like an oat field. Dream of victory. Beneath the pipe's baleful blast, all under one banner, renewed spirit unfurls, suffuses us, dispossessed and enriched by the passion to run the rabble out. And as the cannons call, each switchback and bend respond thunderously. Their coda rings our ears, and the earth cracks open. Poor lad, on that day, still in his fancy dress or uniform, coat is red as a fox. What is that broken over his head? A cocked hat, like charred cabbage. So yeah, a little delusional there about the prince's strengths, at least compared to the historical prince. Um, but it's probably best to go ahead and quickly touch on my translation method. It's definitely more of a deviant translation. I call it subversive translation, and actually, it's not. That's not my phrase. I've adapted that phrase from Roddy Gorman himself, and I go on a little bit about this in the book. But basically, the way I use it is kind of is an accountability, a form of accountability. I know that that translation proper is, or sorry, I should say that I know that I'm going to fail at doing translation the right way. Not to be too hard on myself, but I just don't think it can be done. Um, and there's a few reasons for that, as explained in the book. But basically, I don't believe that there is something called a translation proper or a right way to translate, because that automatically entails that someone has to declare it the right translation. Who is that authority figure? Um, in English, it's most likely going to be an Anglophone person, and I don't think that's right, given that Gaelic is a minority language, and its nearest neighbor, the majority, is English. So basically, what I'm subverting here is this idea of a translation proper. It's you know it's the idea that while nothing can be done right, nothing can be done wrong either. It's just an attempt at opening a door and showing a room um, to readers who may not have had interest or access otherwise. And that's kind of my translation method. Um, I'll quickly go ahead and end this because I'm running out of time with a bit of a nature piece. This comes from a long poem as well called Alton Chukad, or The Sugar Burn. Trout, in close succession, riff staccato off water, and the water like sunny glass shattered with their joyousness. Vivace they played a tablature of flies, they broke nature's laws and scales of light, agility, bejeweled, gill brilliant, blue. Appalachia. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I know I said just turn it off after, but there's still like 16 of you here, so I thought I'd say goodbye properly. But I did also want to raise the point that Taylor talks about the importance of minority languages. And for me, so many people have an idea in their head of what poetry should be because it's only based on the language they were taught and read poetry in. The moment you start expanding where you read poetry from, where you get your poetry from, where you get your art anywhere from, different cultures, different languages, a different language will construct lines and stanzas and words and sentences and adjectives in different ways that you can't fathom because our brain is so Anglo-centered, a lot of us. So that's why I think it's so important to keep pursuing minority languages and showcasing minority languages. That's why we've done Inuit, we've done Comore, we've done Gaelic, we've done Tagalog, Filipino language. We've done loads of minority languages, and I'll keep doing that because I think it's very important. I'd fully recommend read Poems from the Edge of Extinction by Chris McCabe. He edited it. It's an anthology of poetry from languages that are very close to being extinct. And it just blew my mind because they were writing about things in ways that I've never considered the ability to start conceiving of poetry in that way. And it pulled me away from this very clear Western dominant idea of poetry. And I really think it's an important thing to do, to generate and process and showcase languages, particularly minority languages. So yeah, thank you all for coming. I hope to see you all at the next one. If anyone has any perception or ideas on my bi-monthly, tri-monthly Broken Sleep launch, kind of not launch event, but an open mic night where a couple of Broken Sleep authors read, and then we do an open mic for people to jump on and read. That'd be really good. I'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback on that, so do email me. Thank you all for everything, and we will see you at the next one. And yeah, it's just a joy as always. Just puts the spark back in poetry again for me, and I hope it does for everyone else too. Because hosting these, I don't write anything down. I don't have to write anything down at all. It just comes naturally because I'm just so excited about the books, the work, and to be able to share poetry with the world and prose and whatever writing we've got going on that month. So thank you all. I'm going to go walk through the treacherous 10 meters from my office to my front door, which is just grass, just pure grass. So hopefully in 17 seconds time, the hay fever will just stay down and I can go to sleep. I won't because I'm an insomniac, but each their own. Have a good one. Thank you all. Please buy the books, but also just love each other. Yeah. Thank you all.